All right, so hello. My name is Sherelle Williams. I'm a program manager at the Smithsonian Science Education Center. So glad that you're all here with me today. Tonight is our orientation for the 2023 STEM Education Summit, Building a Coalition for Attracting and Retaining a Diverse Teaching Workforce. Again, welcome. So glad you're here. We can go to the next slide. Please go ahead and just rename yourself using your preferred name, pronouns, and organization or affiliation if you haven't done so already. And then just chat where you're joining us from today. I see Stacelyn from Pennsylvania. Hey, how you doing? See Rhode Island in the house. Hello, hello. Allentown, VA, love it, love it. Got some DC folks. I'm in Maryland, so hey neighbor. All right, well, keep it coming, keep it coming. Again, I'm so glad you're all here. You can make it out. Um, I'm looking forward to having a wonderful orientation and hoping to get to know you all a little bit better through our session tonight. Next slide. Okay, so we are gonna take a moment and I'm gonna allow my co-presenters to introduce themselves. So Amy, I'll let you kick it off and I'm gonna clear your screen.
So Zoom has a new annotate function, which allows anyone to draw all over the screen. So welcome to those of you that have figured that out. My name is Amy D'Amico. I am the Division Director of Professional Services at the Smithsonian Science Education Center, and I will be talking to you a little bit later on. I just want to welcome all of you to our orientation and kickoff for the 2023, is it really 2023? 2023 STEM Diversity Summit, as we call it in the shorthand. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Fraser Wilson, who is both our board chair as well as the lead funder for this program. Fraser?
Hello, good evening, everyone. Again, Fraser Wilson, Vice President, Shell USA Foundation, as well as Director of Workforce Development. Look forward to meeting you in a few weeks and sharing with you tonight. So, next person on the agenda.
Hi, everyone. My name is Addie Allred. I am the program specialist for one of the program specialists for the Smithsonian Science Education Center. And I work on a couple of groups, but I'm most excited to work with DEAI. Alex?
Hi, everybody. My name is Alex Grace. I'm a program assistant at the Smithsonian Science Education Center on the DEI team. Very excited to have you all, and you'll be receiving lots and lots of emails from me as I will be the one coordinating all of your travel. So excited to have you all in New Orleans in just a few weeks.
Thank you, thank you. We can go to the next slide. All right, so you should have the ability to turn on subtitles. You can do that by clicking the show captions icon at the bottom of your screen. Or you can view the full transcript by doing the same, clicking the icon at the bottom of your screen to do that. So feel free to enable those features if you'd like. Next slide. All right, and just a reminder that this webinar is being recorded, so please make sure to keep yourself muted, and you can turn your video off during in conversations in the main room. But if and when you go into breakouts, please feel free to engage fully by turning on your audio and your video, of course. Next slide. All right, so tonight's objectives are just to really share a little bit more about the history and mission of the Smithsonian Science Education Center, or SSEC for short, and share a little bit more information about the Diversity and STEM Education Summit. We're also going to share some information around the activities and the logistics to kind of help you prepare for the summit. And then we also want to give you an opportunity to discuss the motivating factors that are driving you to advocate for STEM teacher diversity in your education system. So you'll have a chance to do that with some folks on the call. Next slide. And so I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Amy to get us started with SSEC history and mission.
Thank you, Sherelle. If we could go to the next slide. For those of you who may not have heard of us, the Smithsonian Science Education Center is obviously part of the Smithsonian Institution, which is the largest cultural, historical, and education science and education complex in the world. Our mission is transforming K-12 education through science in collaboration with communities across the globe. The key part of this really being with communities across the globe. So we don't focus on doing a thing to a place. We rather work with all of you, as we know that you are the boots on the ground and the implementers of all of this work that make the change happen. Our center was originally founded in 1985 as a collaboration between the National Academies and the Smithsonian Institution. In 2010, we were able to move all of our sort of intellectual property and ownership, if you will, under the Smithsonian umbrella. So we were able to change our name to Smithsonian Science Education Center. Through that switch, while we still maintain a strong relationship with the National Academies, we're also able to more effectively sort of leverage all of the resources across our institution, which is pretty awesome. Next slide. So the work that we're going to be talking about this evening is focused on diversity in STEM education, the summit itself. And the center that, the Smithsonian Science Education Center has really three core areas of work: innovation, diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion, or DEAI, as people have been referring to it, and sustainability. Each of these three areas actually does intersect with one another, much like DEAI itself intersects with one. You can't have diversity without equity and accessibility and inclusion. So we sort of recognize that, all of this work is really interrelated. If you go to the next slide. When we first sought to, sort of tangibly engage in this work in the diversity space, we brought together a rather large convening of folks to identify areas as a collective group that we thought we might be able to kind of make a collective impact, if you will. And this group was comprised of, educational stakeholders, including business and industry, consultants, NGOs, educators, institutions of higher education, and the like. And we started to sort of dream up, again, areas that we could make a collective impact in specific to diversity in STEM education. From that initial convening, sort of what we called a steering committee emerged. So there were individuals who were really committed to the work and volunteered their time to help us sort of imagine kind of the areas of work and what they might look like in practice. So how to sort of take these big dreams and operationalize them, if you will. And from that sort of initial work, we decided that, a leadership summit was really, one area that we thought we could help sort of move the needle for schools, districts, regions, states, and the like, and consortia. And so if you go to the next slide, we identified sort of three overarching goals to diversify the STEM teaching workforce through sort of systems change in three areas. One, attracting candidates to diversify the STEM teaching. Two, increasing the retention of STEM teachers from underrepresented populations. And then finally, expanding leadership opportunities for STEM teachers from diverse populations. And next slide, we set a goal for ourselves to impact 30,000 by 2030. So attract and retain STEM teachers from underrepresented groups, resulting in 30,000 new and existing teachers by 2030. When we get to our impact slide, you'll see we might need to alter that goal because I think we've done a little bit better than we thought. But you have to start somewhere. So if you go to the next slide, we decided to leverage the sort of teacher education summit that the U.S. Department of Ed under Teach to Lead first imagined, and take sort of that skeleton and layer in the sort of 20 to 30 years of Smithsonian's expertise in systemic change, in partnering with individuals from the steering committee. Some of our initial founding steering committee members, one of whom was from Howard University, sort of stepped forward and said, you know what, Howard should host this. This is really meaningful to us. And we were able to partner with them in 2017 and 2018 to host our first two ever STEM education summits. Then we moved to Xavier University in 2019 and 2020. We quite literally had our last in-person event in 2020 in March at Xavier before, the world shut down. So beginning in 2021, we reimagined that experience in the virtual space over the last couple of years. So 2021 and 2022 were both virtual summits. And we are so excited this year, next slide, to be back in person. While we learned a lot and we think that we made a really had a really amazing virtual experience, we do recognize that having the opportunity to convene, to be in person, to learn together is really hard to sort of recapitulate in the virtual space. So we're really excited to say that we will be at Dillard University Friday, March 3rd through Sunday, March 5th. With all of you. Congratulations for being accepted. If you are not yet aware, the competition this year was actually pretty tough. We turned away nearly as many teams as we accepted this year. So the response was really overwhelming. So we're really excited to have the opportunity to work with all of you. And congratulations on strong applications that has landed you here. So in case you're curious, next slide about kind of how many teams we have impacted thus far. You can see that we've worked with 104 teams representing 27 states across the country, 66 districts, with a self-reported number of 300,000 STEM teachers. And that cumulative impact there is, it has the potential to reach 19.5 million students. You'll notice that we have sort of concentrated areas of impact, Texas and Louisiana, for example, as well as a good showing from Pennsylvania. Texas and Louisiana were sort of our strategic regions that launched this work, although we opened it up nationally due to the fact that we had done a fair bit of work in these regions previously, and it's sort of coupled with synergistic areas of interest, from our partner organization. So in terms of some accomplishments that we've heard from teams, next slide, just to give you some sort of, teasers of what teams have been able to accomplish as they have attended the summit and moved on, through the years of implementation. We've seen changes in hiring policies, the formation of committees and partnering with neighboring schools to build capacity, the implementation of large-scale data collection, collaboration after the summit to promote other teams' initiatives and reach broader audiences together. And we've seen this impact and accomplishments from district teams, school teams, state teams. So you all represent sort of a diverse mix of school-based, district, and state teams, as well as some other sort of representation of other organizations. And we really do hope that you have an opportunity to learn together over the course of the summit. Next slide. While I said that we initially were launched with a steering committee, the steering committee, once the work really started to progress, we recognized that we couldn't have people volunteer with us forever, although we would be pleased if they did, and then transitioned to instead an advisory committee of folks, recognizing that the Smithsonian Science Education Center, while we're able to draw on really broad backgrounds across the institution, we really can't do this work as a single institution or entity alone. We need to have the voices of others at the table who represent schools, districts, teachers, institutions of higher education and nonprofits to help us do the work better. So our advisory committee members who are represented here on the slide, and you will likely be hearing from all of them through the webinars, as well as, you know, some of them will be participating with you at the summit and presenting with you at the summit. These are folks that I can't thank them enough. It truly is a volunteer commitment from them, who they're individuals who are donating their time to this work because they feel that it is important. And we very much appreciate the voices that they lend, both to this work specifically as part of the summit, as well as our broader diversity work that we participate in as a center. So why does this matter? I think all of you might be coming to the table with different ideas. Still me though. But in case you're wondering why Smithsonian Science Education Center sort of started to engage in this work, if you go to the next slide, there has been the sort of student population beginning in thank you. Beginning in 2014 was actually the first year in the United States that student enrollment in public schools was no longer predominantly white. Our student population is increasingly becoming more and more diverse, and is projected to become increasingly more diverse while, you know, up until the, you know, projection here in 2060. Now, that said, if you go to the next slide, the teacher population is not so diverse. So if you were to look at enrollment in, you know, I'll take, for example, elementary school education programs, traditional elementary school education programs. One thing I will say just right out of the gate is enrollment in traditional education programs has been dropping off precipitously over the years. That said, the applicants are predominantly white females. This is not to say that we don't need white females to be part of the teaching population, but that all, you know, there is a benefit to having, you know, pulling from different genders and having different racial and ethnic backgrounds in educators. For, you know, no other reason, if you just look at numbers alone in terms of the teacher shortages that abound, we really need to identify you know, more populations to be able to attract into teacher education programs. There has also been an increase in non-traditional certification programs, which is starting to help. But, you know, more work needs to be done here. In fact, if you look at next slide, sort of the ratio of students, teachers of color to students of color, it's increasingly been, you know, getting, you know, worse, I guess is the only way to say it. You know, in 1954, there was one teacher of color for every 24 students of color, whereas now, or 2011, when this was done, you know, one teacher of color to every 50 students of color. And this actually has a fundamental impact on student achievement. So there is plenty of data that indicates that when there is a mismatch between the racial backgrounds of teachers and students, that students of color do not achieve as well as their white counterparts. This is particularly stark in Black and African American communities, and trends in that same direction in Latinx communities as well. And you know, taken together, it is also worth noting that all students benefit from learning from teachers who have, you know, sort of diverse, both cultural, ethnic, and gender differences. So having that sort of diversity of voice that affords students a sort of diverse way of learning is beneficial. I want to sort of just dispel the idea that education is a zero-sum game, and that if we're trying to reach one population, that another population needs to suffer. I think we need to all go into this with the notion that all boats can rise if we all do just a little bit better. So I would love for you to also hear from our funder and our lead sponsor in this program, as well as our board chair, Fraser Wilson. And he's going to tell us a little bit about why Shell cares about this work. Fraser?
Okay, thanks, Amy. So why would Shell be engaged with the Smithsonian on a program targeting teachers, looking at attraction efforts, retention, and leadership development? Our business succeeds based on our ability to acquire top talent and attract them to our industry. And our business is a technical business. You might not realize, but we're a technology company essentially, and we need engineers and scientists to make it work for us. And when we started looking at enrollment data across institutions, we realized there continued to be a decline in students pursuing technical related careers. So as you look at this slide, it shows you some of the demographics of what that pool looks like for scientists and engineers. And you find predominantly it's white males, almost 50%. And the next highest percentage is 20% white female. So you have 70% of the population with one group. So what that tells us, when you look at the fastest and largest growing populations, they're being left out. And from a person looking at it from an economic standpoint, we're missing an opportunity to tap a large underutilized market. So our efforts to get engaged, to work to attract diverse teachers to the workforce, but also support them with their development and being successful there and moving into leadership, it's key to us being able to develop that talent pipeline and get students excited about the opportunities. What they see is what they'll be. So if you can put more people of color in front of them in the classrooms who help encourage and develop the future scientists, engineers, teachers, superintendents, principals, science leaders, it will help us as a company, but it will also help us as a community to become stronger. When we look at most of your innovation, is coming from those who've had great experiences in the classroom with math and science. They're not necessarily ending up in STEM careers, but the mindset and sparking that innovation and creativity, the hands-on and thinking about being a problem solver in this workforce and society is key. And that's one of the reasons why we're engaged in this work. We realize teachers are underutilized resource to bring about change, but also understand that teachers need to be encouraged to see themselves as they truly are. You are change agents. So that's one of the things we're going to stress. Any change that needs to happen can happen with a teacher. Teachers influence communities, they influence families, they influence classrooms and buildings. You create the culture. So that mindset, it will be key to what we're trying to do. That's one of the reasons why we engage and why, as we look at these numbers, we want to get further in the pipeline to see how we can support the developing that future technical workforce. Next slide, please. So the benefits of that workforce, we understand the importance of diverse viewpoints. We know we all benefit when we can learn and engage with others in conversation and bringing different perspectives to come up with the best solutions. Additionally, we want people to feel included. We want them to feel a part of the communities where they operate. We want them to understand the value that they bring by being different, by thinking different, by being able to connect to others in this space. And we want schools and school districts to provide support mechanisms that help identify and support these efforts. Look at different ways of doing your recruiting. Look at different ways of developing mentoring programs, looking at who gets selected, participate in development opportunities, who gets slated for leadership roles, and how important that is, not only for the students, but for teachers. Because again, we know in 4 years what the turnover rate has been for teachers, but the challenge of getting STEM teachers to stay in the profession as well, and the importance of having those innovative individuals in the classroom with our kids, and the EQ you have to be committed. You have to have a heart for this, and you have to understand that this, I call this is ministry work. Sometimes you don't get the pat on the back, but you understand the promise that this work yields for us. I mean, it's almost like Moses. You might not get to the promised land, but you can see it. You're planting seeds so that these trees and these redwoods could grow, so these students can be the change makers, the generation changers in their families. So that's the benefit of this work. That's why it's so important for us to engage early. That's why it's so important for us to partner with you, and we're excited about you agreeing to participate. But no, we're looking forward to working with you, and we will challenge assumptions, we will challenge your way of operating, and we will look for you to be focused and develop a plan. So I'm looking forward to the work and partnering with you over the next few days. And this work goes beyond just a few days. This is just a starting point for what's to come. Thanks, Sherelle.
That is right. So now you've had a chance to hear from us about why this work matters to us and what led us to this point. And, it's important for you to be able to articulate the same. And so we want to give you a chance to do that. And really think about the role that you're going to play on your team, but also the motivating factors that led you to this summit. So on the next slide, really quickly, I'm just going to go over the different roles. You may or may not have seen this before. We'll click on the next slide, and then Alex has already dropped the information that we'll be discussing, because we're going to go in breakouts into this activity. So you can refer to what she's dropped in the chat to do that. But I just want to quickly go over the information in regards to different roles for teams. So you have your project manager. So this is the individual who's just keeping everyone on track, making sure that your team is adhering to your values and your norms, and just ensuring that everything kind of goes back to and stays focused on diversity, STEM teacher diversity. We have your content expert. So that's the individual seeking out resources and making sure that the team stays abreast of relevant research, practices, strategies, and information. You have an individual who's playing in that role of leadership. So they are responsible for day-to-day interactions, establishing and maintaining relationships, and potentially helping to gain buy-in across schools and districts, and maybe even at the state level if you operate in that level or in that area. You have your data person, someone who's collecting data, is just keeping you all aware of what's going on in terms of what the data is telling you, evaluating it, analyzing it, and of course, reporting out to the communities who are concerned and you want to engage. And then finally, you have your change agent. So this individual is really looking to serve at the district level, potentially build awareness and influence decisions within the system that you are working in. I will say that you may see yourself in multiple roles, and that's completely fine. You may be doing multiple things for your team to support over time and when it comes to implementation, but try to think of the role that you imagine yourself being in majority of the time, right? And kind of explain what you'll be contributing in that role on your team. And if you haven't thought about it, now is a great time to start considering what you can contribute to your team in terms of the different roles that you'll be playing. So we'll take about 10, 11 minutes. Alex will put us into different breakout rooms. And as I mentioned, the questions that you are answering or sharing with your group mates are in the chat. And the link that she's dropped in here is just the same information that I just went over in terms of team member roles. So I'll let her send us away. Add it back. All right, so we are going to continue.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. I'm just interested. Is anyone willing to share a little bit about their motivating factors, or want to talk a little bit more about the role that you're going to play on your team at the summit this year? We'll just take one or two if anyone's interested.
So this is Dwayne Morgan from University System of Maryland. I'm with the Frederick Frederick County Public School team. And I was with a couple of other colleagues from New Jersey and Texas. And I found it interesting that no matter, it's just three of us in terms of local school systems and schools, but I found it interesting that we are all in some way grappling with the big question of how do we equip current teachers to be better at responding to the change that in demographics that our schools are experiencing, whether it's going from majority African-American to Latino, or going from majority white to more mixed. I thought that that fact alone is gave me hope in terms of what I predict we will get as a team from being part of this effort. Like just the reality that no matter we're all thinking about change, and how do we make sure that our students and our teachers have the tools they need to adapt and be not just sort of effective, but also be successful in encouraging students to love STEM and then and love teaching of STEM as well.
Love that, love that. Yeah, and Amy's probably gonna look at me and roll her eyes if I say this, but we keep hearing this word belonging, it just keeps coming up, and I just keep hearing that over and over and over again. And so what you're saying really speaks to that truth. How do teachers find ways to create spaces where students feel like they belong, and how do we equip them with the materials to do that, and the instructional or pedagogical information and approaches and resources to be able to do that? That's what I'm hearing, and I love that you found that connection immediately in this conversation. So thank you for sharing that. I saw Dr. Berman, I believe your hand was up.
Dr. B from Pennsylvania, Allentown School District. We're in the eastern part of the state. I had a great opportunity to speak with some of my colleagues from the Pittsburgh area. And the one thing I wanted to point out that I think the Pittsburgh team is well situated because they actually have an HR representative on their team. So that seems like it would help in reducing some barriers for that group to be able to move forward. And it was just really nice speaking to everybody on our team, and I wanted to thank them for their time.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, absolutely. Calling out the fact that there's just lots of diverse perspectives that can contribute to this conversation, and we really want to emphasize the importance of making sure that multiple stakeholders, particularly folks who are directly connected to this type of work, are involved in this conversation. So thanks for calling that out. And yes, it's so true. We're going to keep moving on to the next part of this session, which is our program overview. Just want to share some quick highlights about things that you can expect so you are more prepared for the summit. But please know that as we continue to get closer to the actual event, we'll continue to communicate more and more with you all the details that you'll need. But next slide. So just a quick reminder for the up and coming webinars. So tonight we're at the orientation, of course, but next week on February 15th at 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. This is Eastern Time, we'll be talking about current trends and case studies. And so you'll have a chance to hear from former team members and mentors about their experience at the summit and some of the strategies they've used to implement their logic model, and also just continue to think about and maybe gain some more insight about what's happening nationwide and how these educators have tried to attack this challenge. And then the last webinar that we're going to have is going to be on February 22nd again at 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. We are assigning pre-work, but really what we're really asking you to do is just to collect data that's available to you, and be prepared to review it during that time at that session. The conversation is really going to be about equitable data. What does it mean to think about equity, and consider that as you're collecting and assessing and synthesizing your data, reporting it out, and really just helping you to understand how you can use the information that's available to you to make more data-driven decisions. We know that's super important in this space and in every space, really. And so we want to make sure that we drive that point home at that webinar. So again, please make sure that you go back, collect the data that you have available to you. In the initial email that I sent out to everyone, there was a little section in the table with options or different resources that are available if you are lacking information around student and teacher demographic data. There may be some resources available to you that you can use to have something to work with, but do bring what you can. Please don't stress yourself out in 2 weeks trying to do surveys and things like that. We just want you to have something to work with at that time. So do bring that. That is the pre-work for that webinar. Next slide. So in terms of the actual summit, so it will begin on Friday, March 3rd. The focus for the first day is going to be on organizational change management, which is really, allowing you the opportunity to go through a simulation that will help you understand how people adapt to change. And we call them adopter types, but the different personality types or traits that people generally carry when they are dealing with change in a system. And so you'll have to kind of think through how you address those different adopter types in your education system, and kind of strategize around ways to kind of move them toward change in a positive way. And we'll wrap up with dinner after that simulation or that experience. Next slide. So Saturday, we'll start in the morning, 8 a.m. We'll do a quick breakfast and welcome, and then we'll jump into some morning activities. But majority of that day is going to be focused on developing your logic model. So ideally, everything that you've learned from day one will be applied into day two as you develop different pieces of your logic model. And then next slide. In the evening, we're going to have a reception just to celebrate your progress thus far. So that will be from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. The attire is business casual. Transportation will be provided from Dillard University straight to the reception. And we will be having this reception at the Holiday Inn downtown Superdome. More details to come about any other information that you'll need to know, but we will be celebrating. So come ready to party, okay? But not too hard, because the next day, next slide, we are going to, next slide, we are going to be continuing to do work on your logic model. You'll have the opportunity to hear from your peers and gather some feedback related to the work you've been able to do thus far in the program. And then the last segment of the day will be focused on messaging and a panel discussion to help you think about how you can gain buy-in and attract support for the plan that you've created, and you will be implementing over an 18-month period following the summit. And like Amy said, we will work you hard, but we will treat you right. All right, next slide. So now Alex is going to talk to you about travel and accommodations, and kind of get those details squared away for you.
Hi, everybody. And if you'll go on to the next slide. So what is covered by Smithsonian? We are covering a 2-night hotel stay between March 3rd and 5th. So that is during the program, that Friday night and Saturday night with checkout on Sunday. And ground transportation between the hotel and all the event venues will be provided, except for that first to the very, very beginning of the event, given the nature of travel before that. So all guests are responsible for travel between the airport and the hotel or Dillard if you're arriving on the 3rd upon arrival departure in New Orleans. And who is eligible for travel and hotel. Smithsonian can provide travel and lodging for anybody who is outside of a 50-mile radius from the main event venue. So that would be from Dillard University. And commuters within 50 miles of the event venue will not be reimbursed for gas, but those who are outside of that 50-mile radius will be. So Addie can go on to the next slide. We will be providing dinner on the first day and breakfast and lunch on the following days. And if you'll go to the next slide. Talking about bus transportation, charter buses will be provided for your commute between the hotel and the Dillard campus at arranged pickup and drop off times. You will receive a bus schedule prior to your arrival in New Orleans, so be very clear. And ground transportation, again, will not be provided for any non-program related activities. So if you intend to stay in a certain area that is not where your hotel is, on one of the evenings, we will not be providing transportation back, but we will have prearranged travel back to the hotels after the close of the program every single night. Go to the next slide. So important dates. So you received in your acceptance email a link to a traveler form, which I will also put in the chat here, that you must fill out by tonight. In this, we ask for full legal name, date of birth, and gender. That's required from all plane travelers. We do also get that information from drivers via different means. So for all flight folks who are flying, we need that information from you and your desired departure airport to be able to book travel for you. And for drivers, we need you to fill out, there's a form that is linked in that Microsoft form that we need from you also by tonight to be able to get you into our system and make sure that you're able to get your mileage reimbursement in a timely manner following the event. And we will be covering air travel for everybody who is flying outside of that 50-mile radius. The main priority when it comes to booking air travel is that we get you there for the start of the event and for the end of the event. I have received quite a few requests to come in at different dates and times. Our main priority is getting you there for when the event ends and when the event closes. So that is our top priority. We may be able to accommodate some requests, but we can't make any promises. I need to be flexible with us as we try to book travel for a lot of you. We appreciate your patience. So the week of February 20th, participants who are flying will begin to receive all travel itineraries. And if any changes need to be made at that time, you will be able to let us know and we can make those changes for you. And participant reservations will be ticketed and finalized the week before the event. We will know who you're flying with and when, and we'll get you there on time. So if you have any questions about travel, you can email me or Addie, and we will make sure to get that information to you.
Can I just ask a question before you go any further?
Yep.
Because it's basically what you just, well, the date that everyone is expected to be there is on the 3rd, is that correct?
Yes.
So, okay, not the 2nd, not the night of the 2nd.
No, because the program, it begins in the early afternoon on the 3rd. We're going to prioritize that folks who can get there on planes before that time, but obviously if you're coming from further away, there's just not flight availability to get you there by that time. Then we will be organizing flights the night before, but primarily folks will be coming in on the 3rd if the flights can accommodate that.
Are mentors
let me just
coming in?
add, yes. So with mentors, you will be coming in earlier on the 3rd. And so we are going to push to have you come in Thursday evening, which is March 2nd. So that way you don't have to catch a super early flight and then rush to get to the mentor meeting in the early afternoon on
Okay.
March 3rd.
Can you tell me when that might be an issue for me? But anyway, that's a personal issue. But
Okay, absolutely. And so I was just going to add, if you do have a specific request or you need, have some special circumstance that needs to be addressed, please make sure, as Alex mentioned, please make sure to reach out and communicate that to us so that way we can keep track of those things and try to accommodate you as best as we can. The earlier we know, the easier and the sooner that we can make those adjustments in the travel arrangements for you. But just to clarify, mentors will be expected to come in before 2 o'clock on March 3rd. And so we are going to be looking to make sure that you come in a day early so you're not having to take a super early flight to get in on time for that meeting.
And for those mentors, because we are requiring you to come in an earlier time, we will be providing a third hotel night that night of the 2nd. So you will not be expected to cover your own accommodations on the night of the 2nd if you are a mentor, because you'll be required to come in earlier. You guys
I
have some
ask a
questions?
question also? Somebody's,
Yeah, go for it.
so I did reach out. I'm from the New Haven team.
Uh-huh.
And we need to come, just because we're traveling from such a far, just, distance wise. Our preference and what our district normally does is send us to things like this the night before, which is what I shared with you guys that we need to do. And the only thing we need to know, because if you're taking care of the flights anyway, then whether it's the 2nd or the 3rd doesn't matter. We just need to know if we need to pay for the hotel room for the 2nd, because our district will do that. We just need to know as early as possible so that we can submit the forms so that they can take care of it. And the 20th, really, our district asked for things 45 days in advance. So the 20th is really cutting it close. So if we could know that sooner rather than later, just so we can let them know, and we can, because otherwise we're going to be on pins and needles all the way through.
If you will send me an email again, so there's a lot of emails coming through, lots of folks booking travel for, so I appreciate your patience. If you'll send me an email again with that information, that February 20th, we should hopefully have information for you before that. But that's just like a ballpark sort of end of that time. As we're collecting information now, we have to hand it off to a travel agency who then can pop out which flights are available to get you here when you need to get here. And so there is going to be a little bit of time between when we have what flights are available and when we get back to you.
Because like I said, flights, you guys taking care of the flights, not a problem. We have no issue whatsoever with taking care of the hotel reservation on the 2nd if we have to. We just need to know in advance. That's all. So I'll shoot you another email just to give you the
that'd be great.
you.
Getting some more questions in the chat about hotels. So due to, there's another big conference happening in New Orleans the same weekend we are going to be there. Thus, there was limited hotel availability in one place, so we're going to be split between a couple of different hotels. You're going to be placed, we're ideally putting all teams in the same place, but we will have those hotel assignments to you in the next couple of weeks. Some of that depends on when folks are going to be flying in because of hotel availability at those hotels. So appreciate your patience also on that matter. And we will get that to you because I know that's for some folks who are booking their own travel or need to let people know that that is an important thing to know. So we will also get that to you as soon as we can.
I see a question in the chat about coaches coming in. We're going to ask you to come in on the 2nd as well.
Yes.
So your schedule will mimic the mentor schedule.
I used to coach volleyball. Could I be counted in that number?
Okay, Coach Joyner. I mean, we gonna see. We'll see.
Just again, if you have any questions or requests, the best way to do that is to send me an email. Also add Addie on there. We'll both be taking care of travel. And we appreciate your patience. It is a lot of information to sort through and a lot of folks are trying to accommodate for. So we are doing our best. If we miss a detail, feel free to send it to us again, especially me again. Much appreciate your patience. This is a lot of information, but we're going to make sure that you have a place to sleep and a plane to get on or mileage reimbursed to get you here and back home safely.
Yes, Alex and Addie are doing a fantastic job with these travel and lodging accommodations. I can't think of enough that like it's the things that Alex had to do to get 4 hotels in New Orleans. Whew, you all do not even know. But yeah, she's handling business, so you're in good hands. Oh yeah, so Alex, can you please drop your email in the chat? And if you have any more questions about travel accommodations, because we are over time and I do have a couple more things I want to share, can you just hold on to those things and we will stay on a little bit longer for those folks who have those questions. So next slide. Just a quick, update about health and safety guidelines. Currently, masks are encouraged but not required at Dillard University. So, do what suits you best in terms of social distancing and masking. But of course, if things should change, if we have any uh, shift in our plans, we will let you know as soon as we know so that you can be prepared for what comes. And we are following multiple channels and different guidelines from not just Dillard, but New Orleans. And of course, as Smithsonian employees, we have to follow their directives or recommendations for staff and on offsite programming as well. Okay, next slide. And so just some reminders before you sign off for tonight's webinar. Next slide. We have a current trends and case studies webinar next Friday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. Please come ready to learn about the experience from former teams and mentors, but also bring some questions if you have them. I'm sure they'll be eager to answer them and support you as you get ready for this year's summit. Next slide. And if you have not done so already, please schedule time with your mentor. And mentors, make sure that you reach out to your teams and kind of get to know one another, kind of start to build that relationship so that you are able to work and just get ready to get straight to business, get straight to work when you come together in New Orleans. You all have your applications. I've reshared the application with teams and mentors. You have the application materials for the team that you've been assigned. So really get to know that information really well. And again, just kind of start building that relationship because we know we don't have a lot of time before we all come together in New Orleans. Last thing, assignments. Again, remember to prep for day-to-day. Look back to the email that I sent you last Friday. Was that last Friday? Wow, that was last Friday. Last Friday, so that you can look for those resources that I shared in that email. If you'd like me to resend it, just send me a quick email. I'm happy to reshoot it over to you. And then I also have this assignment for teams to create a team slide. I'm going to send you a template that I would like for you to update and send back to me February 24th. So that's 2 weeks from now. So can you please get that done as well? I'll definitely remind you and you'll get that template in a follow-up email. I don't believe that I don't have that available to me, but I can definitely reach out to our marketing team. And Amy, I'm not sure if there's other things that we need to do, but I will talk to our marketing team and see if we can assist you in some way. John, I see your question. I'm not quite sure if I have a good answer for you right now. That is it for now. I will stay back because some folks may have some additional questions regarding travel. We'd like to take care of those as best we can in this moment. So I'm going to stop the recording and again, hang back for anyone who has additional questions. And for anyone asking about press release templates, please just send me a quick email if you don't mind, because I know I will definitely forget if you don't send it to me in an email so I can respond to that.